We have an important story coming out of the world of sports. Elnaz Rekabi, an athlete competing for Iran, was recently in Seoul, South Korea for the Asian Championships.
An Iranian climber has competed without a hijab for the first time in 43 years, in open defiance of the Islamic Republic's restrictions on female athletes. Elnaz Rekabi, an Iranian woman, climbed without covering her head at an international competition, amid anti-hijab protests.
She did not wear her required hijab, and now there are deep concerns for her safety. The protests have hit day number 30 in Iran. Protesters wrote on their hands the following: "Women of freedom life, in the hope of a prosperous and free Iran." Recently, more workers went on strike. However, this video hits different. The reason? The protests have now spread to the oil and gas industry. Kareem Sajapur would write, "Striking oil workers played a critical role in the 1979 revolution. The protests were sparked after the morality police in Iran saw a small piece of hair showing from Mahsa Amini. She would be taken by the police. Then at the station, Amini would collapse. At the hospital, she was in a coma. Then she passed away. She was 22 years of age."
Her family tells CBS News police killed her. She was tortured, according to eyewitnesses, says Irfan Mortazai, Mahsa's activist cousin in exile in Iraq. She was tortured in the van after her arrest, then tortured at the police station for half an hour, then hit on her head, and she collapsed.
Her death has sparked a revolution in the country, with women taking the lead. In this video, a defiant, brave woman takes off her hijab and dances around a fire to cheers. Many others have cut their hair in support of the protests. Citizens mandating change have burned the hijab to send a message of defiance and resistance. However, the regime has killed over 230 people, according to HRANA, certainly an undercount because of the suppression via the Islamic regime. The suppression may be taking place now, once again, with another figure, and that is, of course, Elnaz Rekabi. Now, we are hearing and seeing multiple angles of the story, and we want to cover all the bases, so here it is.
Big concern over the fate of an Iranian athlete who is missing after defying her government. She has not been heard from since competing without a hijab at a competition in Seoul, South Korea.
On Tuesday, the Iranian semi-official Tasnim news website published a short interview with Davud Rekabi, identified as the athlete's brother, who said she was wearing a headband and was not trying to defy the hijab rules.
Once the Asian Climbing Championships ended, friends say she vanished.
The BBC translated part of her Instagram story that was posted mere hours ago. It read in part, "Due to bad timing and the unanticipated call for me to climb the wall, my head covering inadvertently came off." BBC Persian's Rana Rahimpour says that to many people, the language used in the post looks like it has been written under duress.
Her decision to climb without her scarf broke the Islamic Republic's rules for women in sport, but colleagues say it was deliberate.
Al Jazeera reported Rekabi was supposed to return to the Iranian capital with her teammates early on Wednesday morning, but her schedule was changed, seemingly because many on social media said they'd be at the airport to welcome and support her. In her story, she said, "I am returning to Iran with the team based on the previously set schedule." Rahimpour would add that other Iranian women who have competed abroad without wearing a headscarf in the past have said they came under pressure from Iranian authorities to issue similar apologies. Some of them decided not to go back to Iran, like female boxer Sadaf Kadam, who competed without her hijab in 2019 in France, then appeared to have stayed in the country. A source told BBC Persian that Rekabi's passport and mobile phone were confiscated and that she left her hotel in Seoul 2 days before her scheduled departure date. Her family and friends lost contact with her after she said she was with an Iranian official. And here is where it gets tricky. Iran Wire reports Rekabi will be directly transferred to Evin Prison from the airport. The head of Iran's climbing federation tricked her into the Iranian embassy building in Seoul after he received orders from Iran's Olympic Committee chairman. As we go over this story, there are different aspects of it that should raise red flags. The first is this report of her passport and phone being taken. So now basically the regime, if this is true, is claiming her as their property. We have all seen what has happened with this prison. If she is going there, problematic. If they have seized her property, problematic. There's more. The Instagram post. I'll get to that in a second. The changing of the schedule so there is limited support when she returns. That is a tactic of brutal regimes that they deploy. When the regime was requested comment, they said it was fake news. Kind of odd. False information, fake news. Why would a government say this? Lastly, and here's what I point to I agree with the Instagram post appearing to be under duress. I think her brother is covering for her to not implicate her in something that she did, and is only looking out for his sibling. It reminds me so much of what we saw in tennis with Peng Shuai. And if you missed that story, check it out on demand. Basically, Shuai alleged and accused a senior official of essaying her. She was nowhere to be found, nowhere to be seen. And then suddenly they took down one of her posts on what their version of Twitter is. And I'm blanking on the name. Their social media company. And then following it, she put up a post that said it was all false. And then she was finally seen in the public eye, and the International Olympic Committee covered for her. Covered for the regime, did not cover for her, and said she's fine, she's great. So seeing this pattern when someone is indeed under duress is troubling. And I think we've already seen the playbook for how a government, when they are facing opposition, will deal with a public figure like this.